Are you ready for cocktails and conversation? This is Herspiration Happy Hour. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another episode of Herspiration Happy Hour. This is your unapologetic diva, Dr. G.
This is Cortina Peters, aka the Girlfriend Therapist.
And this is Louisa Harrell, aka the Blue Phoenix. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi. Tonight we are drinking on something that I even think is too sweet, but I thought it was interesting, so I'm gonna say it anyway.
Nothing can be too sweet.
I'm telling you, this is called a passion fruit martini.
Okay.
And you need 4 ounces of passion fruit vodka or regular vodka, 2 ounces pineapple juice or passion fruit juice. This is why I say it might be a little too sweet. An ounce of simple syrup, an ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice, 4 fresh passion fruits halved, 2 ounces of sparkling wine or Prosecco, and ice. So you fill the cocktail shaker with ice, pour in the vodka, the pineapple, the pineapple oil passion fruit juice, lime juice, and the simple syrup. And then you scoop out the fruit seeds and the juice of the passion fruits that were halved, and you put it in the shaker. Shake it vigorously for like 15 seconds, and then strain to 2 martini glasses. And you can top it with a slice of passion fruit or the seeds. Yeah. And then if you want to, to make it a mocktail, of course, you don't add the vodka. And you can get sparkling wine that's not, they have the sparkling wine that's like apple cider. So you can add that in
it. That's a lot for a martini glass.
I know.
I'm like, there must be like little pores. A martini glass is not.
Yeah, I was like, oh, but to see the picture was so pretty. I was like, oh, this is cute.
Is it in a wine glass? Or is it in
a martini glass?
Ah. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Oh, you could come in and bring it to me, babe. I'm getting my drink handed to me.
All right.
How about that?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, one of my favorite glasses, a lemon drop martini, but it's
it's my favorite drink.
In a wine, one of my favorite wine glasses. Speaking of South Africa, on my way to South Africa, this is where I bought this from. And it has blown glass in the middle. Anyhow, it's so beautiful. You can't really see it because there's pineapple or there's lemons and stuff in there, but it's one of my favorites for that reason. Nice. Anyhow, it is Wednesday, and we always recognize women who are making a difference or have made a difference. Because we talk about women in history just as much as we talk about those who are alive. And one of the things, hello, Nick. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today for my WCW, so I'm going to go first because I want to recognize that it is Suicide Prevention Month, and it's a very pivotal month. And, the person that I chose kind of aligns with our guest today when we talk about burnout and overworked and overstimulated. So my WCW is Naomi Judd. What I did not know about Naomi Judd is that on April 30th, 2022, she took her own life by gun. And you're talking about, an American singer and songwriter and actress. She was in country music. Her and her sister, Winona Judd, founded the Judds. Mm-hmm. You talk about relevance now. I didn't even know she passed away, let alone passed away from suicide.
Yep.
And, so I wanted to recognize her for my WCW for the inspiration that she gave to country music and her contribution to country music and everything that she done and how hard she worked. And yet she still took her life. And there are a lot of people, and I've always said this, and I've said this on here about checking on your strong friends, check on your friends who are constantly busy, who overcompensate with work rather than take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so our mental is so important. So that was my WCW, just to kick off and recognize that, it is Suicide Prevention Month. So what about
also just had the rapper 600 Breezy, his girlfriend committed suicide recently. So
the last text message was like, wow.
She said she just couldn't do it anymore. She had wrote this message so many times, and it's nobody's fault. It's just, her. So you can have all the money and everything, that does not compensate for the darkness that someone can be experiencing within their life. And so check on people. And even if you are checking on people, that doesn't mean they're going to give you, everything. Yes, but at least you can feel better by saying, you know what, I did my part as a friend. And even if you're not so much of a friend, let's just say you're a coworker or someone, and you just notice something is off or different, the vibe is not there. It takes absolutely nothing just to ask someone, are you okay?
Yeah. And
that you know what? Save someone's life. That might,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And just for people to understand, and they always say, I didn't see it coming. In majority, 99.9% of the time, you will not. There are people who suffer depression and are on medication. So you kind of feel like, let me worry about this person. But a good majority of people who commit suicide are high functioning depressants. And so depression looks very different from one person to another. Absolutely. And so, again, check on your strong friends, check on your funny friends, check on your friends who always have jokes. There's a hint of truth in every joke. Yep. And that's so true. I'm just saying. So what about you? Oh, you didn't have your WCW, Cortina. Do you have one?
Oh, I do. I want to give my WCW to Dr. Tanya Bass. She is one of my committee members, and she has been very instrumental. She does a lot in the field of sexual health. She's a huge sexual health advocate. You can follow her. She's known as the Southern Sexologist on Instagram, and she is just totally awesome, very supportive, and she does a lot for Black women in the field of sexuality. And so I just want to give her honor her as my WCW today.
Okay, so my WCW is an author, and I figured I'd go to being an author because you guys are authors, and why not bring another lovely, beautiful Black woman on as an author? Her name is Octavia Estelle Butler. She was born June 22nd, 1947, and she passed away February 24th, 2006. I didn't even know she died. I don't know where I was, but anyway, she's a science fiction author, and you didn't hear much about Black women or Black people in science fiction, and she incorporated African American spiritualism into the science fiction world. So she kind of like bust through the roof because science fiction was mainly white males authors. Mm-hmm. So she received. She was a recipient of the Hugo and Nobel Awards, and in 1995 she became the first science fiction writer to receive a MacArthur Fellowship. So that was really cool, and I just wanted to share Octavia Butler with everyone.
Okay. Oh, you're on mute, Dr. G.
I know, I habit because I hardly mute myself. And so when I do, it's just like, oh, I just totally forget. No, I'm so grateful that you all always enlighten me with, different people who are out here making a difference. And our guest is already here, and I'm definitely want to have her in this conversation because, her name is Sara McElroy, and she's the journalist and founder of the RAZE to RISE project, which is a movement aimed at amplifying the powerful voices of women from the Great Resignation. And if you know anything like I know, this whole Great Resignation, I think I might be a part of it, considering I resigned.
You might be.
Because I resigned during COVID. Oddly, I did not realize when I think back, it's been almost 2 years, but I resigned November 7th, 2020. That was still during COVID.
Yep.
And so I'm assuming I'm a part of this, movement. But one of the things that I really liked about her is, and I was reading her bio, and she talks about experiencing burnout and the stress that comes with, work. And during COVID, there was a lot of people who was not able to find balance. We talk about suicide prevention or suicide awareness, and how many people were stuck at home with their violent offenders, who was either committing crimes or committing suicide. And, women, we carry a lot of weight. We carry a lot of different things, the pressure and stress. We carry because sometimes we think we should when we shouldn't. We also carry the weight of our friends. And then you add your career on top of that, especially if you have one of these high level positions, or even if a low level position that you're required to do a lot. So I really want to bring her on because she has had more than 125 conversations with women. I need to hear what in the world she has to say. So we're going to bring her up. Sara, how are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hello.
It's great to be here. Dr. G, Cortina, and Louisa.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So I kind of gave a brief overview of who you are, but can you introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Sara McElroy, and I am a former chief marketing officer and ex-hustle culture devotee. And I was inspired to return to my journalism roots after I became a two-time member of the Great Resignation within a span of just 9 months, as well as the Wall Street Journal's poster girl for pandemic burnout. And on the other side of these just career failures, as many could say, defecting from two perfect on paper jobs within that very short period of time, I was reeling and I wanted to find out, what are other women experiencing? What are the breaking points and defining moments that are leading so many of them to seek greater opportunity in the wake of the pandemic as well? And that's why I founded RAZE to Rise, a journalism project and movement amplifying the powerful voices and stories of women from the Great Resignation.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I know Pam said earlier about the number of women that you've had the opportunity to have a conversation with. Would you say that there's a common theme in those conversations as you spoke to those women that continue to come up in those conversations?
Sure. Well, really for me, there were two red threads. And the first being that we're seeing a full-scale renegotiation and reprioritization of how work fits into our lives versus the other way around. I don't know if you all had that same experience, but I certainly did, where pre-pandemic, we're all running on the hamster wheel like crazy, and we've got our noses to the grindstone. We are not even stopping and pausing to think, is this even what I really want? Is this good for me? Am I working the right amount? Like, we never considered all of these things. And all of a sudden, the world goes on pause and we start to, as we're able to, a lot of people are switching to work from home and things like that. We're starting to say, are some of these rules related to how we work arbitrary, or are they really necessary? And it created in us this desire to also ask that question of ourselves and what we were doing too. So the stories are all really personal as far as obviously circumstances and what ultimately led women to leave, but that is really at the heart of it. And there's another nugget too, if y'all want to comment on that first part, or I can share that other nugget as well.
You can share the other nugget.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. Now, this one really surprised me and caught me off guard, but it made sense ultimately when I recognized it. So I'm having these conversations with women who have left their jobs, and it became clear that we just knew when it was time to go, when it was time to call it quits. Now, some women also did some exercises related to mental gymnastics with spreadsheets or for budgeting and finances and pro-con lists and things like that. Okay, Dr. G, you know what I'm talking about. But I will tell you that those were not the determining factors, which I just was so floored, because we have been taught, if you think about the way careers are, we're taught to approach them. We're taught logic, rationality, pragmatism, find that stable, secure job, climb the ladder, pull down fatter paychecks, chase that fancy title. But we're not taught to harness the power of our inner knowing and that part of us that knows really what's good for us and when a situation has reached its expiration date. And so I was amazed by that. So women weren't necessarily saying, everybody is like really in tune with their intuition, but they talked around this knowing. And that's, I think, a piece that is so key for us moving forward. And that's what my goal is, really, to rewrite the women's career playbook. So we are coming back to that part of ourselves and allowing that to guide us moving forward.
I think one of the...
So let me ask a question really quick. I just have a question because I want to go back to what you said about pandemic burnout. So what is pandemic burnout? But then what does pandemic burnout, what did that look like for the different women that you spoke to?
Sure. Well, pandemic burnout, it certainly makes sense. And you were speaking to it at the beginning, Dr. G, that there are so many pressures on everyone, but women in particular. We think about how we've been conditioned to be caregivers, to put others' needs first. We know the burden of the household responsibilities and caregiving typically falls on women. McKinsey and the Lean In organization, they do an annual Women in the Workplace report. And at the end of 2020, they found that women were spending on average an additional 3 hours a day in housework, caregiving related activities. And when you think about it, that's unrecognized labor. That's labor on top of the work that they're already doing. And then you fast forward a year later, and the same study comes out at the end of 2021, and they found that those numbers haven't changed. And women are 3 times as likely as males in the household to be doing that work. And now 1 in 3 women have considered downshifting their careers, which would mean to take a position that's less stressful, or they've considered leaving the workforce entirely. So it's very clear that all of that pressure cooker that was created by the perfect storm of the pandemic really took a toll on women. And we also saw too, we lost a lot of our safety nets during that time related to being able to see our families and family helping with taking care of little ones. Virtual schooling was a huge undertaking that a lot of women had to keep going and take care of their kids' education in addition to their work. So it's like, it's no surprise that over 50% of women, per this study that Deloitte did earlier this year, 1 in 2 women want to quit their jobs in the next 2 years. And that actually skyrockets to 90% of women on a 5-year horizon. And 50% of women are talking about being burnt out and having very poor or very poor mental health. It's really, these are alarming numbers right now.
What I was going to ask, do you think that in addition to all of these factors, just the fact that people are not putting as much weight on consistency and loyalty, people used to be very dedicated. Like, you find a good job, you don't leave it, you stay there forever. You have your 401k and your pension. Well, a lot of jobs are not offering necessarily that anymore. And so coupled with all of the things that you talked about, and this kind of move away, because they always talk about, like millennials and how they just, if they're not happy, they're just going to leave, Do you think that also plays a part in, I'm not going to stay here, I'm good 2 years, I don't have to stay here, I'm going to go find something else as well?
Definitely. I think so, for sure. It's very clear that level of loyalty was born of a bygone era. And you're spot on with that, in that there was a time where that loyalty was really rewarded. You'd find that job, you'd stick with that one company, you get your pension, and you're trading the ability perhaps to grow and expand and do more things in your career for that stability and security on the other side. But now that is not guaranteed, it doesn't make sense for us to have that same sort of blind, unquestioning loyalty when it's not being earned in the same way by employers. And so it's not a sort of a thing where I'm encouraging all women to, just walk out tomorrow, because I think we need to be really conscious and intentional with what we do in our careers. But I do think that we are touching upon a moment of empowerment that says we get to be the architects of our careers, and we're not just taking the shoulds of what we should do per society, what other people think, what our family members think. And we actually get to have that say that says, this is how work is going to fit into my life moving forward. And this is what I will tolerate and what I won't.
Yeah. So now I have to go back to pandemic for you, because you said 2 resignations. So what would prompt not just the first one, but what prompted the second one? And after that second one, what was the pivot?
My goodness. So I'll give you a little picture on the other side of the two resignations to help you understand who I was, at least before all of this. I was that good girl. I was the corporate good girl. Whatever was asked of me, I would do it. You don't give me that playbook, I will execute against it. I will climb the ladder. I'll get all the titles and the paycheck and all of those things. And I will wear my ability to work harder than anyone as a badge of honor. And we're talking hours. Like, I just didn't even question it. So much of my identity and my personal value was really tied up in what I brought to the table in my career. So as the pandemic hits, I get a new job as a chief marketing officer for a private equity backed wellness concept that was scaling nationally. And I was also doing an executive MBA program at the time. And I knew it was going to be a lot, but I wanted to do it. It was like everything I'd ever wanted on paper. So I start doing the job, and I'm balancing school, and I'm working up to 20 hours a day to juggle both of them. Not every single day, but really unsustainable kind of approach. And I started to have some my body was rebelling, really. And I had a couple of episodes of throwing up blood that landed me in the ER. And then I got shingles in April of 2021. And that was like, I had this moment. I am in the doctor's office, and the doctor tells me I have shingles, and I'm overjoyed. I'm overjoyed because I get to take 10 days off from work and nobody can say anything about it. It's for a socially acceptable reason. I couldn't give myself that permission to rest on my own. And so I have so much compassion when I look back on that version of me, and that I had that moment of like just pure relief and gratitude for my illness, but then realizing, okay, Sarah, we're going to have to do something a little bit differently here, because being happy about getting diagnosed with something that could ultimately lead in blindness and paralysis is like major red flag wake up moment. And so I quit and found a new job, moved to Florida, tried to get settled in here, cut back on my hours, doing yoga and meditation and all the things. And it's like my burnout isn't completely healing. And I finally put together that I was dealing with a really misogynistic culture and a sexual harassment situation that wasn't being properly addressed for months. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is like a paper cut on my newly healing burnout wound. This just makes so much sense. So that's why I ended up quitting that job and was inspired to understand, what are other women experiencing? I can't be the only one who is moving from one organization to another and struggling with overworking and dysfunctional, toxic cultures and all of those things.
Oh yeah, I know about that way too well. Yes. That was the decline of my burnout. That I don't even, after hearing you speak, I think part of mine was that same situation, the burnout. I was working. I had my own company. I was a college professor. I worked for the federal government. And even when I was on vacation, I guess I was so accustomed to even working on vacation, no matter where I was at in the world, I was still logged in if I was needed. So I never really had that downtime. So much so, my pivot after I even left when I resigned, it was still hard to give myself grace to even sleep in an extra 30 minutes. Yeah, it killed me. Yes. It was like, and yet here I was up till sometimes 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning working, but dare I sleep past 7:30, even though I worked for myself. I had a hard time giving myself grace because mentally I was always accustomed to, working. And I always felt like, well, you know what? How dare I leave my full-time job and then sleep in? And I would never sleep in on their clock. So why would I sleep in on mine? Not realizing that I really worked too hard when I was working. And I never, and then now I give myself way more grace, where I learned how to balance and actually take care of myself. But I'm almost 2 years in, and I tell you what, I'm finally really this year getting my jam on my personal time and my personal space. And I used to say, oh, I'm so balanced because I still traveled and I did all of that. But I really didn't. I still was like, well, I make excuses for having to log in. I make excuses for having to check. It's not going to take long to check this email. It's not going to take long. And I'm still working. Yeah,
absolutely. I know it's a really insidious thing where we have to go through a process of detoxing and unlearning what we have learned related to behaviors and work. I struggled with the same thing too when I left corporate, and was the same sort of pressure you're feeling. You're like, I've got to make this thing that I've said I'm going to do. I'm not earning the corporate paycheck anymore, and I wouldn't sleep on them. So I've got to deliver for myself now. And the pressure is so much. And we are, at times we can be our worst enemies in applying that pressure. I mean, the wake up moment that I had too was like, oh my gosh, I'm creating all of my stress and these deadlines when nobody else is. It's me. And it's like this internalized almost objectification that happens related to hustle culture, that we start to then value ourselves based off of our ability to work and produce. And the work ethic is obviously, like, it's ingrained in our American DNA, that pick yourself up by the bootstraps culture. Like, that's what we do well. And so it is, you have to be so gentle on yourself. And I love that you recognize that, Dr. G, to be like, I'm going to give myself grace. And I know it's going to take time for me to learn what true balance is for me, because I didn't actually know what it was before. It wasn't modeled well for me. And so I'm going to find out also what is right for me personally.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And so now, do you have children?
I don't know. So it's just me. And that's where career became everything. It was, especially after I was divorced in 2014, I just threw everything into that because I was always good at school and academia, and that made me feel good and validated and worthwhile. And so it became the same sort of thing. If I don't have a family and kids like I thought I was going to have, well, darn it, I'm going to be the best freaking employee that I can be, regardless of what that looks like. And so all my eggs went in the career basket at that point in time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that I can understand. Cortina?
I forgot I was on mute. I was talking. When you said no children, I said no fur babies either.
Oh, no, I have one of those. Oh, don't you worry. Yes.
You can't leave the fur baby out now.
Yes.
What I was going to say to that was, even sometimes when you are in executive roles, I went to lunch one time with a colleague of mine, and I was just 100% like, every time the notification would go off, it's almost like we don't even have we're not even in touch with reality as it relates to time lapses and us giving ourselves space to take time to respond to an email. It's like, as soon as it hits the inbox, okay, I got to send a response right now. And so that really, we've all done it. It gives a false sense of availability. And it's almost like, okay, well, if you don't respond to this email, okay, did they forget it? Did they see it? Okay, maybe a follow-up. And it's like, can I take a breath? And so my friend, she was like, you are traumatized. Like, every time your phone rings, it's like this anxiety that I would get. And she was like, I am never going to lunch with you again, because all you do is check your phone and respond to emails and still keep working. You can't even take an hour off. And that's really sad, how our jobs can impact our mental health, but we don't even pay attention to it, because it's just what we're used to, of what we see, what we know. That's kind of how the work culture is. And it's like, okay, if I can't take an hour, 30 minutes without checking an email, if I can't go on vacation without checking an email, am I really enjoying life? It seems like the job or the career dictates and drives the boat to where we're going. And that's not necessarily living.
Exactly. It really isn't. And I just love so much of what you said. One of my favorite sayings that I've heard as I've been doing the research around this, and I love to bring to bear, is just because it's normal doesn't mean it's functional. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that we can do related to work in our society that are dysfunctional, even if they are commonplace. And so you really have to do this conscious sort of inventory around your beliefs with work and what it means to you to be, to be a good employee. Everybody wants to be a good employee. That is important, and it's inherent to us and in our nature, really, to want to show up and do a good job. But the definition of that should be more personal and conscious versus us just taking, well, other people are working like that crazy amount, and if I want to be as good as them, then I have to do that too. And so I think you're spot on in that regard. And then the other piece, like, we get into these habits, like these neural pathways that are deeply ingrained related to work and notifications and things like that. And we know from the standpoint of our brains, and there's like a dopamine hit that goes off when we get that ping or whatever, and we feel like we have to respond, and we get caught in these like almost spin cycles related to having to do all the time. And it's like, let's be human beings, just human beings, not human doings for a minute, and come back to just the meaning of life and who we are and what's important to us and what we value and how we want to show up as far as our character. Like, all of that is so much more important than just blindly showing up day after day and just slogging it out at work. Now, if you ultimately decide that a lot of work is right for you and that's the healthy sort of thing, then go for it. But make it a conscious choice, a conscious decision.
One of the things I want to respond to is, I know G.I. Mo, he stated women still have support and we don't. And I think that's because of society, right? It's like men are supposed to be able to handle everything. Yes. You got it. It's okay. You're supposed to work, take care of everything. And up until recently, we really did not give men a space to be vulnerable or to say, I need help. And so if I'm not used to seeing that and there's no one offering the help, I may have never even been taught or know that it's even okay for me as a man to ask for help. Whereas with women, we're a little bit more vocal. We do have those different type of social circles that we can go to because that's just something that,
But I also think that it comes down to male pride too, because men are not socialized to share their feelings, that they don't know what support sometimes look like. But so their pride steps in to say, I'm not allowed to be this way, or you know what I'm saying? So even if support is there, they don't know what it looks like because their pride is in the way, or their past is in the way, or hurt is in the way, or, childhood trauma is in the way from the way that they are raised. So sometimes support is there. You say, but can a man be vocal? Women call it complaining. Well, so let me talk about this too. So much the same way that a woman will call it complaining, a man calls it nagging. Let's get that straight right now. It's a double-edged sword, but it's still the same thing. If that makes sense.
I think, because I keep going, I'm in a bad area, but I don't think it's pride with men. I think it's conditioning. They are conditioned to not talk, to not share, to not express themselves because we teach them boys don't cry, boys don't do this, boys supposed to do that, and so it's a conditioning. And then, like you say, when the space is there for them to express themselves, they don't know how because they've been conditioned not to. And we will talk. We women will talk. We're going to share because that's what we do. Also, I recently, maybe about last year, realized that we trade our time for money. And I think if we took that attitude and that approach with these jobs or these careers where we're building from someone else, we would give ourselves that grace to take time off because we are building someone else's business with our time. This is our time. We're taking away from our time. And it's a mental and emotional strain and stress that we put on ourselves to build someone else up. And so this is why the resignation happened. This is why the breakdowns happen. This is why men break down. And a lot of people don't think about that. We're taking our time, our personal time, 8 hours a day. Okay, but that's 8 hours of your time in a day. And a lot of times it's between 8 to maybe 12, maybe to 16 hours a day of our time. And so I think if we thought that way, we wouldn't have these mental breakdowns because we will understand that this is my time. If I work for you, you get this allotted time. I'm not going to go over that because I have a household to take care of. Some people have fur babies. I have 5 children. So I work, I have the children, also have other businesses on the side that I'm doing. So you have to learn that your time is just as important as the people's time that you work for. And if it's not done within that 8-hour window, or maybe 8.5-hour window, it will not get done until tomorrow. But we don't appreciate ourselves in that matter because, like you said, we're on the hamster wheel and we have to get the money. We have to be prideful in our work. We have wonderful work ethic and we're going to do this, but it takes from who we are as people. And this is why the new generation understands that they're not going to allow someone to take their time. If they feel like it's taking, from what they want to do, they're not going to do it. Now, that could be a great attitude, but it also can be bad in the long run. But that's the type of attitude we should have because we should appreciate ourselves and understand that our time is valuable, just like that job.
And sometimes it's easier as an employee to have that mindset. But sometimes when you're in an executive leadership position, it's a little bit more challenging to navigate working within those parameters because you are expected. You're a salary employee. So it's like when we call you, we expect for you to be available. That's why we're paying you the way that we're paying you.
Yes.
And I can remember I hated taking time off. We did not get it. They did not pay us out for it. I don't know. And it was something that you were talking about earlier, Sarah. And I had to really break away from this. I felt like if I was the one who never took a day off, I was the more dedicated, better employee. And that was something like mentally, like, who cares? You're not getting a prize for it. So what? Let's say Sarah, she takes all her vacation days and she's much more emotionally adjusted. She's doing what she wants to do. She comes back and she's able to do her job. And you're sitting there, which would be me, resentful, like, okay, why are they so happy? And they got us doing all of these, metrics and we got to meet these numbers and these targets, all of this. Well, that's my fault for not taking the time off when I needed it and really being able to listen to your body and follow and give yourself what you need. But for so long, we don't even know what we need, that we can't even lean into and listen to our body when we need to. Yes. And so learning how to do that and step away from the appeasement or pleasing other people and learn to please ourselves.
And also we're conditioned.
That's
so true.
So Sarah, I have a question. So I'm going to talk about RAZE to RISE, because what inspired you to just decide, okay, not only am I going to talk to women, what really inspired RAZE to RISE?
Well, for me, that image of saying, for me, it was like, I have built a house of cards, my career in sort of this life. Like I've climbed to the top of the ladder. I make it to the C-suite by age 35 and I get there and I'm like, oh my God, I am so hollow and empty and unhappy. What have I done? I've built a house of cards. And so for me, it was like, I have to raise it all. And that's not in such a, I guess, a sort of sensationalistic sort of a way, but like looking at my life end to end and how I'm treating myself and how I'm approaching my career and doing that conscious evaluation and taking that inventory to say, what do I need to do differently moving forward? I do think that sometimes we need these moments of raising. You think of like a forest fire, it can be extremely damaging, but what you come to see then is there's this beautiful growth that comes from that forest fire when we clear out what's no longer needed. And so that was really the name for it and how that was inspired. But then I have a friend, I know she's on watching tonight, and she was one of my inspirations for this because a few days after I quit, which was in more of a raising moment, actually, I'll tell you that very quickly. I was so frustrated and upset with the sexual harassment investigation that finally happened months later because I wouldn't drop it. And it was so clearly very check the box and perfunctory that I drafted this blistering anti-harassment resignation letter later that night after I got the readout from HR. And I took my laptop into the office the next morning and I'm shaking, I'm trembling, but I hit send on it and I sent it even to the CEO, not just my boss and HR as well. And I walked out the door. I didn't even give 2 weeks notice, which is the antithesis of that good girl that I had always been. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, what has happened to me? I'm reeling now. But at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, I have more power and capability and voice than I've ever had. So I'm taking all of that. And then a few days later, I attend this musical that I have a few friends in down here. And it's called Respect, the Musical Journey of Women. And it's about this college professor who, after her breakup, decided to research the top hits from women from 1900 on. So songs sung by women that hit number one. And what she came to find from the 1,000+ songs that she researched is that they tell the story of women. And it goes from being like on the side of the early 1900s of, oh, my man, if he doesn't love me, you know, what am I going to do kind of a thing, and like dressing up and looking good for your man and taking care of your home, to then on the opposite side of it, it's like Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire and Sarah Bareilles' Brave. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I had this moment of just like sort of that divine spark. This is what I'm going to do. Women need to be able to tell their stories as part of this so we can learn from it, crowdsource wisdom, and move forward stronger and more empowered in our careers than ever.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So why the name though?
What's that?
Why the name RAZE to Rise?
It was really that, yeah, like burn it down to build back up and rise together. Because I also believe too that the more we talk about all of this is a rising tide lifts all boats kind of moments. And I first started realizing it after my story was picked up by the Wall Street Journal. Actually, I interviewed with them back in October, but the article ran in December. And after that, the conversations that I started having with women who reached out, and even men too, but women especially, who reached out and wanted to talk about their own experiences with burnout and figuring out how they're going to navigate moving forward. These were deeper, more genuine, powerful conversations around work and career than I had ever had before. And it was just like, there is something here. We all have this opportunity to shed the layers and get rid of the things that are no longer working for us or serving us, burn it down and build it back up to be something far greater and far better for all of us.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So how can people connect with you and get involved with RAZE to Rise and follow you on social, hear your message of everything that you have going on?
I would love to hear from anyone. This is my passion. Our individual stories are just so powerful. We forget that sometimes. And I hope everyone leaves this conversation knowing that. But my website is razeToRise.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Sara J. McElroy on both, and would absolutely love to connect. I'm working on a book for RAZE to Rise. And so I'm really thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to take these amazing women, their incredible wisdom and insight, to an even bigger platform to be able to share more broadly.
Okay. Thank you so much for stopping by. Do anyone have any last minute questions or anything for Sara?
No. Oh, Katina.
I'm so sorry. Oh, Mike. I just want to say this was a great conversation, and all of the side commentary as well with the different individuals who are tuning in, going back and forth and stating their opinions. Good conversation.
I love it. I love it. I will say this too before I let you go. When we talk about burnout and work, and one of the things you said very early in the podcast is how we got off work and then started work again. And I think sometimes where we feel like we have to keep doing and doing and doing, and I'm talking doing it for our jobs, doing it for our friends, doing it for our loved ones, we're still giving extensions of ourselves, and we have to learn to even reel those things back. Yes. For the purpose of self-care. I actually had to learn that, where I was like, oh, let me take a pause, because I will go hard for my friends. I will go hard for my work. I would overcompensate in a lot of areas. And I had to stop doing that to make sure that I was able to take care of me. So when you're dedicating hours and you're not intentional about your time, you burn out a lot faster. So I appreciate you even acknowledging that women who have children, especially, they work and then they go back to work. And then sometimes they go back to work again after the kids go down to sleep, because now it's like, I have to get ready for the next day. I have children. That is still work hours.
Oh goodness.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's so true. And it also speaks to what Louisa was saying earlier related to our time. It is our most precious commodity. We think that money is, or we have often in our society worshipped money like it is the most precious, but it's not. It is the time. And how we spend it is so important to be thoughtful about that. And I just love that is the message that you're bringing to bear here. That is, we are more than our jobs. We are so much more. We're beautiful, multifaceted humans. And the more that we can put stock in the other parts of us outside of work and think about our life holistically and how much we're giving and how much time we're spending on work-related activities, personal, at home, or professional, the better off we'll all be.
So I'm going to ask a question before you go, because you were a lot like me when it came to work. Who is Sara now?
Oh, I love that question. No one has asked me that yet. I think I'm far more than my work. Now, I will say I am very personally invested in this because it is so near and dear to my heart from my own experience. And this kind of conversation and these types of resources that are coming out of this are the things that I needed most when I was just struggling. And so now on the other side of it, I am a daughter, a girlfriend, a dog mom, a yogi. I love going to the beach. I mean, I want to have a positive impact on the world, but I know that more than anything, that comes from me being whole without the work. So it's all got to start. It's got to start here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that question. That's a great question.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming by and hanging out. We're going to definitely have to stay connected with the whole RAZE to RISE, because I'm always very much intentional about things. Stay in contact with us for sure. I'd love to know how we can network some more.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you, Dr. G, Cortina, and Louisa. Wonderful to meet y'all. Have a wonderful evening.
You
Great
too.
conversation. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I love all of that.
Great conversation.
And I think it also, it brings you back the things that you're not always conscious of.
Absolutely.
Really, it brings it.
True.
Because sometimes, creature of habit, I can find myself still working. For example, I worked until about 3:00 this morning. And then I was up, my alarm went off at 6:30, and I was like, am I going to get up? Am I going to lay here? And I decided, I was awake, but I laid there, but I was reading the Bible. I was praying. I just got to do other things and just kind of center myself before I actually got up.
Right.
So I'm proud that I actually, even though I was in bed and still kind of doing other things, I was taking care of me on my time. And so I needed that. This right here solidified of how I spent my morning. So it was actually extremely on time, because even though, I work for myself, I sometimes still fall in a rut where I feel like I'm going to keep pushing on. I have things to do, so I'm going to just work instead of make time for me, make time for my family, make time for my friends, and all of those things. Yeah. So before I let you ladies go, because we still got like 10 minutes. So I'm going to ask you all what I asked Sara. Who is Cortina Peters, the soon-to-be Dr. Cortina Peters? Who are
Doctor.
Well, I would have to say she is someone who is learning to take things one day at a time and not sweating the small stuff, because control was such a part of my life for so long, and I'm just learning how to free flow. And there's a book called Relax on Impact. So when life hits you, you learn to relax instead of trying to brace yourself for it. So I'm just learning how to relax and how to embrace all of the parts that make me. Because sometimes, like when I meet with patients, they're like, oh, I don't want to revisit that chapter of my life. But that chapter is what made partly what made you who you are today, because either without the struggle or without the trauma or without something, the whole person standing here today would not be who's here today, because you can't take slices of yourself and say, I only want these 5 pieces of me, I don't want everything else. So learning to totally fully embrace every aspect, everything in the past, everything that I've experienced, everything that I've gone through, everything that I've come into awareness of, and just embrace all of those things. And yeah, it's not the easiest, but it's much more fulfilling and satisfying.
Oh, nice. What about you, Louisa? Who is Louisa?
Louisa is on a journey. I am on the path of healing and freedom. I am also extending my path of understanding and patience. So that is who I am. And I am also unconditional love. So that's Louisa.
Okay. All right. All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. I'll answer the question for myself. I think I'm like you. I think I'm always a work in progress. I'm always open to learning something new about myself, something new about the world that I'm in. But I am the type of person that's learned to slow down, smell the roses, take the walk, watch the trees, look at the grass, look at leaves. It's fall. So I'm so ready to just be able to see the world change, and change into all the beautiful colors, because I love earth tones. But I'm also, I'm fun loving, I'm giving, a daughter of, I'm a girlfriend. I'm like a PMA to 2 babies. I'm so many things that I had to learn outside of my work. And even though I work really hard now, I don't allow it to define who I am anymore. And I think and already at one time I had imposter syndrome. So I never wanted to admit sometimes what I was, for fear that I didn't feel adequate enough. But now I feel beyond adequate enough that I don't even have to explain that part of me, because my work shows up long before I do. And so for me, being able to harness the love that I have for myself and put in boundaries that I had to learn, especially in friendships, especially in family ships, I think I'm at a peace. I don't really care about much. I don't worry about much that I can't control. And the only thing that I can control is how I react to things, how I act to things, and how I behave towards things. Mm-hmm. And so I love the balance that I now have on my life the best way I can. I don't even think balance is a normal word, because what's normal?
There's no such thing.
There's really no such thing as normal. No. But what I have done was normalize the things that's important to me. And I hold on to those things that are important to me, that have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with anybody else. So that's who I am. Cortina, how can people connect with you?
People can find me on The Girlfriend Therapist at all social media platforms. Also at Sext Unveiled, and that's SEXD Unveiled, or the Noir Center, and that's NOIR Noir. So that's where you can find me.
Okay, Louisa, where can people find you at?
Well, you can find me at the Blue Phoenix Hills on every platform. And I want to say that I'm super, super, super proud of you ladies, because I know it is very hard coming from one position and going into another for yourselves. And I'm so elated. I'm so excited for you guys on this. Oh, y'all just make me smile so much. All the things that y'all do and just where you're going. It's just I'm just so proud of y'all. And just the fact that you're able to pull back sometimes and know that you are worthy of time, and who you are is just as great as who everybody thought you were. So I'm very proud of you guys.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Definitely. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love you ladies a whole bunch too. So you can find me at IAMDRPGURLEY. I am Dr. P. Gurley. I did go back. You can follow Herspiration Happy Hour on Instagram at Herspiration Happy Hour. If you go to the Instagram link, then there is a link tree now that will lead you everywhere if you want to be on the show. Or you can also hit let me hurry up and find this. You can hit us up at dawentertainment.com/podcast if you want to be featured. I believe we are now towards the end of October for guests.
Oh, wow.
I know. And our next guest will be, who is this? Amanda Ribideau. She will be on Herspiration Happy Hour next week on Wednesday. Oddly, we were just having this conversation about podcasts, and I had shared that in 5 seasons, I have never missed an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Next Wednesday is breaking my heart that I'm going to miss my very first episode since launching into 2017. That just like kills me. I have a wonderful co-hosts who are here who I know are going to be absolutely amazing, but I'll be on a flight to South Africa to do my talk with the University of South Africa.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's a good reason.
Hard. It's going to be hard. But I'm always here. If you enjoyed the show, you can feel free to hit the tip jar at www.buymeacoffee.com/HerspirationHH. We do love it. This conversation was so super dope to have. And I really hope everybody had something to take away from it. It was definitely a reminder to me of how far I have come, what I have sacrificed, what I have given up to avoid or to, I guess, remedy burnout. So, yeah. Do you ladies have any last minute things that you want to say? One, it being, Suicide Awareness Month. Do you have any tips or, before we go?
No, my only tip would be, like I said earlier, it costs nothing to check on someone. It costs nothing to say hello. How are you? To say thank you, to say any of those things. And a lot of times we trivialize the power and the impact that those small words can have, but they really do. It reminds me of, there was this guy, he didn't really have many friends, and, he was a loner, he was to himself. And one day I was just like, thank you. And something inside of me just, I don't know, I think it was God, just said, like, give him a hug, like someone I did not know. And I got emotional and he got emotional, and he was like, I really needed that. What made you do that? I don't know. It's just a feeling that I felt. And so I think even if I would have just said, hi, how are you? Thank you. You know how people can open the door for you, and then, you open the door for them and then they just walk through. I'm like, well, that's rude. I could have closed the whole day. Even just saying thank you for those small things. I think the world needs a little bit more kindness. I think the world needs a little bit more patience. I think the world needs a little bit more compassion. And so try to be kind, patient, and compassionate when you are experiencing the souls of other people. So that's what I got.
Wow, I love that.
I second that.
I know, I third it. So we definitely appreciate the message. And so you ladies will be on next week without me. If I can, I might pop on right before my flight heads out. If I'm on the plane, it'd be kind of hard to do.
Well,
but
definitely.
Yeah, but I might try to just kind of pop in to say hello to everybody, because then I can at least say, yeah, I showed up a little bit. But you all have an amazing week, and then I will be back. And actually, the next time I'll be back is week after next, and I will still be in South Africa, but I will be recording from there.
All right, different time zone.
Time zones, but look, I podcast when I was in Israel.
Well, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I say I don't, hey,
don't miss.
And because I love this, I love the conversations. I love being able to share and have people share their stories, their experiences, and awaken things in people. And that's one of the things that Herspiration Happy Hour stands for. It's literally whether you are having cocktails, no-tails, mocktails, whatever. It's literally about just having conversation as if you were sitting at the bar, being able to talk to anybody about who you are.
Right.
And I tell you what, a lot of business decisions you can get jobs from meeting people at the bar.
Absolutely.
You can get educated from meeting people at bars or lounges or wherever. There is something about the camaraderie of happy hour that has the ability to educate and connect and resonate with people differently. So, yeah. Everybody, we will see you next week, Wednesday. We will be back from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you want to be featured on the show, just hit us up online.
Yeah.
Until then, cheers.